With Hashem's loving grace, welcome to Amunah Beams with your host, Laser Brody. Today's podcast is entitled, Beaten Yes, Beat No, and it's an emergency mode of rescuing ourselves from abusive situations. In chapter 5 of Song of Songs, King Solomon writes, "The watchmen that go about the city found me, they beat me, they wounded me. The guardians of the walls stripped my clothes from me." Well, this passage describes every one of us. One of the common perils of this world that are virtually impossible to avoid is verbal abuse, which includes humiliation and insult. The damages of verbal abuse are many. First, they rob a person of his or her joy in life. Second, they rob a person of their self-confidence and positive self-image. Rabbi Yehuda Hasid writes in Sefer Hasidim that insulting another human being is tantamount to murder. It's worse than robbery. Maybe we don't see immediate justice in this world, but rest assured that those who let insults roll freely off their tongues, they'll pay the price of punishment not only in the next world, but it'll eventually catch up with them in this world too, measure for measure. But it's not the aggressor we're talking about today, it's the victim. Even though you tried to ignore it, that insult that you got was painful, especially when it happened in public. And even if the insult was in private from an abusive spouse or parent, it still hurt. Because it takes a self-righteous person to insult someone else. Because if anyone had the slightest bit of honest self-assessment, he or she would never insult anyone else. A judgmentally or verbally abusive person is not only self-righteous, but someone who has terrible feelings of inferiority, and he or she tries to encourage themselves by stepping on others. So what does all that have to do with the passage from Song of Songs that we mentioned? The watchmen that go about the city found me, and they beat me, they wounded me. The guardians of the wall stripped my clothes from me. Well, the watchmen are the people that are looking at us through a magnifying glass, looking for something wrong that they can pounce on like a hawk diving on its defenseless prey. They beat us with their insults, and most of us don't want to upset the peace. We try not to respond by stooping down to the level of the verbal aggressor. In any event, the insult wounds us, and we can't deny that. What does that have to do with stripping us of our clothes? The Ibn Ezra has an amazing elaboration. He says that the spiritual garments that clothe our soul are our mitzvahs and good deeds. In that light, the insulter is trying to dishearten the victim. The insulter says, "Oh, you don't have anything good about you. You know what's giving the power to the person to insult you? That's the evil inclination." People that are criticizing this says you don't have mitzvahs, you don't do good. The Gemara says that even the worst person in the world is full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. Anyone that tells you that you're no good and that Hashem doesn't love you, he's got the evil inclination speaking from his or her throat. They act like the guardians of the walls and the protectors of Torah, but they're just guarding the walls of the Yetzer Hara that are trying to keep you away from Hashem. The moment you get insulted, make an emergency stop. Right now, disengage from the insulter the best way you can. You don't have to listen to that slander. Remind yourself immediately that Hashem loves you and he only wants you to get closer to him. Remind yourself of all the good you do, even the mitzvahs that you've done since you woke up this morning. Excuse yourself. Go lock yourself in the bathroom, look in the mirror, and tell the person you see in the mirror how good, sweet, and wonderful he or she is, because that's the truth. Just because you were beaten with insult doesn't mean that you're beat. By no means. Run to Hashem. Hashem loves you. And if the insulter tries to tell you that he or she is insulting you for your own good, don't believe them. Because a loving parent or spiritual guide chastises with love, but doesn't insult. At the end of chapter 5 of Song of Songs of Shir Hashirim, King Solomon says that the person that really cares about us, his mouth is sweet, he's completely lovey, and that's my beloved. You know who that beloved is? That's our beloved Father in heaven, who soon will gather us all up in his loving arms and carry us to our rebuilt holy temple in Jerusalem with Mashiach and the full redemption of our people speedily in our days. Amen. God bless.